well. Because many times I've experienced, sometimes after an event, and what may seemingly be like a setback or some, karmic sort of thing, but you realize that after some time that actually that's the best thing that could have happened. How I learnt through that process is actually the best way that could have happened. So it really was the best at that time, but it's our ability to see that at that time and accept that at that time, that this is when Baba says, what's happening now is the best, and it's, better, and that whole aspect of it's auspicious this time now.
So, well, the theme for December is Jivan Mukti, isn't it? Putting spirituality actually into life. And it sounds as though you've always felt the very deep importance of that. You're not wanting, meditation or spirituality as something, that takes you out of things, but you always see, actually, how can I bring that into action?
Yeah, and that's been a journey as well, because I guess sort of in the early days of Gyan and even pre-Gyan, this whole notion of, which was a big movement, of course, in the 60s, and out of being here and now. And I used to think, what is when they say just be here and now, what does that really mean? And of course, putting that across to a Gyan sense of point, it means if we're really in this moment now, that's everything is complete within that. There's not and of course, according to drama, each moment is measured for eternity as well, isn't it? It's like this moment now. We were all here last Kalpa, yeah? Anyone thinks they shouldn't be here or weren't here last Kalpa? So, we understand that as a knowledge point. Okay, yes, we were here last 5,000 years ago, right now at this moment, but do we accept that in every moment, And sometimes I see this as like, when there is that ability to focus and be concentrated in the moment, that's when almost a magic happens as well. Because we hear things that sort of because the thing is, if we're thinking, can we be in this present moment if we're thinking? Do you think we can be in the present moment while thinking? Huh?
A short while after.
Short while after, yeah. So it's like if we're thinking, we're either thinking about something past or future, or what I think I might be going to do now or next, but it's not actually this moment. That's what does that make sense? So it's like, okay, if I'm just doing, what I've found a lot is if I'm actually doing something with the hands and I start thinking of something else, it's actually dangerous. There's always a margin for some accident or something, because you're not fully focused on that particular action. So when that happens again and again and again, you start to feel, wow, that it's actually, if I'm doing this action, how to do that action and be 100% present while doing that action. And then it means that there's a feeling there's no margin then of any waste, because we're already 100% focused on that job. It's not like, I'm doing this job and I want to be over there, and so I'm rushing to do this to get somewhere over there or some other particular point, and so I'm not really fully focused where I am. So that's almost like a feeling of discontent or something within that as well, because it's not what I want to be over there, but I'm actually doing this right now here. So it's almost like that's a way, I have to bring it back to I can actually be 100% doing this, and then of course each step or each moment will bring me to that next activity, which will still be 100% if I'm focused in that. So in that way, it's almost like then the feeling of, I couldn't have done any better. There's a real feeling of that contentment in that task because you've been 100% focused. If I'm not 100% focused, then I still won't be contented. It never will be good enough, actually. There'll be a feeling, there'll be something missing within that.
And Baba teaches us to do everything within the context of the cycle, doesn't he? This was something that sort of puzzled me when I was first in Gyan, because there seemed to be so much instruction to, remember other times. It wasn't just about being here now, because, I'd tried practicing that. I don't know that I'd been very successful, really, before Gyan. And so Baba combines the two, doesn't he, actually? Because when he says spin the cycle of self-realization, he adds so much depth to actually what I am doing now. Yeah?
Mm.
Can you say what sort of made you, maybe challenges you've gone through or something that have made you really able to apply that being here now? Because, all of us BKs have got specialities, and we've got our own special way of our special insights and ways of seeing things and so on. And nobody's got your part, so nobody's going to be able to do what you've done or what you're doing. But basically, I think the lessons that you've gone through and the challenges that you've gone through to get where you are now would actually apply to all of us. So it'd be great if in this conversation we can become clear as to some yuktis and some insights as to actually how we can do this too.
Well, I think we all have our own specialties and talents and that in different ways, But I think one of the key points of that is sometimes looking at some in the Lokic world where some of the great teachers and inspiring sort of speakers where they say, okay, even I remember Steve Jobs in some of his quotes, he'd say, don't stop looking until you find your real specialty, and once you find that, you'll know that, and then a lot of magic can happen. Because it's almost like until we find something, we can be completely that's our specialty, and really, like you said, no one has anyone else's same part, so of course we all have specialties, but I think when we find that, it means we can when we pursue that, we can be 100% in that process doing that. And I think this is, Golden Age, we're all artists, yeah? We're all artists in Golden Age, and we're soul conscious naturally, and it means that then being all artists, one of the whole things with art is that when the soul is doing that and is 100% in that process doing that, that's what creates the art. If you see somebody sweeping the floor and they're totally 100% focused, it's an art. You watch them and it's like you think, wow, everything's just so, it's like when we do something, when we're in that process, of course it's a magic within that, but it means I have to be 100% in that process doing that. That's what makes it the art. Because so all the energy is going into that. There's nothing outside of that. So it becomes naturally then a natural art, and of course, yeah.
So isn't it now, actually, that we're the artists?
Yeah.
Baba says he gives us the pen to draw our fortune. And isn't the artistry, the utter loveliness of the Golden Age on every level, it comes from now, doesn't it? So this is why I think this is what this conversation is about, really. This is, what we're interested in. How can we deepen this in our own lives?
Yeah, and I think that aspect of it, when we're able to make everything an art as well. I mean, it's not necessarily a picture, a painting,
No.
but it means the art is like the art of life in a sense, isn't it? The art of life is okay. It might be a variety of things, but when look at children, sometimes Baba says they're like the Mahatmas, the young children, because they're so innocent, and they'll play a game, and then they'll get to a point where then they'll go to and play another game or do something else and switch to this and this and this, and of course the whole days might be playing, but it's not the same thing all the time. It's not the same game. If it's to put them in the same game, then they won't like that, They want to do something different, something new. So I think when we have that variety of things to do, or know what really works for me, I mean, I have the same sometimes with doing digital work or computer work. That's okay for a certain point, and then you just a certain point you have to do something different, do a different task or something, and create things that I like and enjoy for a service that has a variety of things.
So there's a lot of faith in yourself, I think. This keeps coming over. Have you always had a lot of faith in yourself?
Yeah, well, I guess sort of a few years ago was interesting, because I was doing the computer work, and now computer work's become more than the handwork, hand painting. I mean, the days when painting these were like by hand, that was before computers and the large printers, so it was all by hand. And it got to a certain point, then it changed over to computers and Photoshop. And then, of course, now there's many players doing that in Madhavan and Shantivan, working with Photoshop and images and that. And of course, we can print them not just here in Madhavan, but in other places as well. But then I remember I got interested in, there was one brother who came from Australia that was his aim was to teach someone in ORC outside of Delhi, the retreat centre, global hospital in Madhavan, to make this sourdough bread. Yeah, so I was really interested in that, because I'd always I'd always made bread, just normal, well, what I call normal, but yeast bread. But I was interested in this thing, and because that interest was there at a certain level, all of the things that just fell into place to do that, like all happened in a matter of a couple of weeks. An oven come along, a commercial oven, and all the baking trays and all this equipment, and I thought, wow, this is just like a magic, that all of a sudden I started doing this, and then all these things just arrived. And I hadn't said anything to anyone, but drama just in a way brought all those things to, all of a sudden I was doing this bread. And it was such a lovely balance between digital or computer work to go up to the house and just to make bread. It was like that sort of change was enough to give that the variety or whatever to that it was another part. And of course people like the bread, so that's that's also good as well, a bonus. Yeah.
Yes.
So variety of things, to do variety, but whatever works in that sense for each one, as well, because not everyone's going to make bread, There's many different artistic forms or something which you can be involved in, which you're really 100% into, as well.
You make your life and your Brahmin life sound very kind of lovely and very easy, and I know you had challenges. So perhaps we could look at one or two of your challenges and actually how you overcome them, because I think we'd be really interested. You seem to have a very solid sense of your own value, faith in your part, and also faith in the power of spirituality, and that kind of whatever you're doing, really make sure you bring spirituality into that. So back to the earlier part of your story, when you came into Gyan, and yes, there was already this painting, and there was music, and then you're in a country where the sister in charge is Didi Nirmala, and she didn't think music mattered. You just switch an electronic thing on and it plays. You don't need live music. I don't know what she thought about the painting. Probably she didn't think painting was very important either. So would you like to go into that a bit, and what you learned through her, and the challenges, because there must have been times when it really kind of knocked you back a bit. Is that right? Or
yeah. Well, it's like, I remember when I first came to Madhaban, I think the first trip to Madhaban was 86, in February 86, and when I come back from Madhaban I was in Perth at that time, Western Australia, and well, I was in Broome still in the northwest, but I come back from Madhaban and I moved straight into a centre after my first trip to Madhaban. And I remember Dr. Nirmala said, Acha, if you want to be a centre Nawasi, you have to renounce the music and the art. You won't have time for that. And I thought, okay, that's fine. Because those things came to me as a gift anyway. I didn't really learn those as such. They just came as an inspiration to start doing those things. So I didn't feel like and I felt it really was a godly gift in that sense. So it wasn't like a feeling I was giving up something. But interesting enough, when I said, yeah, that's fine, to Didi, and of course I think she was testing how detached I was from those. Because in those days in Australia, there was many musicians and artists that come into Gyan. There's quite a few in Australia. So, and the souls that were doing those things for a livelihood or their thing, that was more of a challenge for them, because a lot of them were getting home at Amrit Vela from work, and then to follow a Brahmin lifestyle was a challenge for them, because their profession was these music or bands and playing late at night and all these clubs and that. So, but interesting enough, the person who was running the centre, he had, within a week I was doing art and music. He'd asked me, the centre in charge, so what could I say, Didi was 5,000 miles away over in New South Wales. I was in Perth, another 4,000 miles or something to the west. But no, it was just a feeling that was really that sort of test of, and when, of course, Gyan Sarovar, Didi was the third Didi, a daddy that was looking after Gyan Sarovar. First we had Daddy Chandramani, and then she'd left the body, and then there was Daddy Manohar, and she left the body, and then Didi came. So I was already here at that time. But yeah, many times with the music things, and I think Didi could see that I was not as detached as what she thought I should be with these things. So many times people would ask me to go to programs in India to do music, and Didi say no, Most of the time she'd say no, 99%. And of course, at first that was like a challenge, because I'd think why, live music compared to recorded music is very different. It's a different experience, because if I'd but that was a story. She'd say no. So and of course I would play with that as well, because if somebody had asked me and I didn't really want to go myself, and I didn't have the courage to say no, I'd say, you ask Dr. Nirmala. If she says yes, then I'll go. And I know she would say no, so that was But interesting, the last year, she would say yes to everything. In this last year, she would say yes to these. So I was thinking, okay, did it sort of, because obviously she knew she was coming to her karma teach stage, or final stage, so she was in that sense more detached from those things. Because sometimes she'd say, no need to go to play music, just put on tape or CD, No need to go and play. Why spend the money to go on a flight and this and this and this? So I say, did he? It's not the same as live music. But that was, so that she had her ways of testing. And then, of course, when I become more detached from that, then that was also...
So how did you become
that.
more detached?
Well, not seeing it as I mean, this is one of the things I think with what we're doing as well. I mean, obviously in a Lokic world, if we look at, you know, what's in a Lokic world, for Lokic souls, what's a big attraction? You know, it can be artwork. You know, look at some of the artwork that's sold for millions and millions and millions of dollars, a painting. Or it might be the #1 in the world famous band or singer, you know, having, you know, hundreds of thousands of followers and, you know, putting on concerts with, you know, hundreds of thousands of people and that, and it's so attractive for souls, for Lokic souls and that whatever they say, whatever they sing is affecting millions or thousands and thousands. So in that sense, it's like, but then in Brahman life, like how to use those things, but not have that, I guess, the ego of that as well. Like, I know from my experience, you know, when I first started playing, even for Baba and in Madhaban, you know, I was so self-conscious of playing, you know. I was thinking, why is it that I can play this perfectly alone in my room with no one around, but as soon as you get on stage, it'll be a mess. You know, fumbling and missing chords and sort of like think, what is this? You know, like just because there's an audience or someone watching. And I used to think, how is it that I can be the same off stage, so to speak? I mean, Baba says it's all a stage anyway, but I mean, okay, we say, okay, this is a stage and you're off stage, but how can it be the same on stage as is off stage? That you're not sort of inhibited or affected by if somebody's watching or not watching or an audience. So that used to always sort of like, not puzzle me, but I was thinking, you know, if I watched musicians or artists perform, like well known, you could see they'd be totally lost in their music and it'd be their song, and that's what was so attractive, because it was their own song and they were 100% in that, and that's what become the attraction, you know. But if you're doing that and somehow self-conscious, it wouldn't be 100%. I used to sometimes gauge myself, think, okay, that was about 30% today, or, you know, 40%. It was because you'd be affected by that. So I think that part is like, as it becomes slowly and slowly more, as you do that more and more, you become more comfortable doing that. And of course then it becomes more natural and more normal. And I remember one time, it was the first time I experienced this, was there's probably about 600 people or something in Harmony Hall at the top here. And I remember it was an Amrit Vela, and I remember playing, and I looked up after 45 minutes, and it was, the hall was like 600 or 700 people or something in the hall, but I had no idea they were there, that many people. And it was like probably the first time I really experienced that I was 100% focused, concentrated, and the feeling of just being an instrument, that was the key thing. And of course, then it was a feeling, okay, we're all just instruments. If we're a good instrument, then we're in tune. Like if you relate that to a musical instrument, if the musical instrument's in tune, then it's going to sound good. Yeah. If it's out of tune, it's always, it doesn't matter what you play, it's always going to be, you know, okay, we might clap, somebody sings out of tune. You know, somebody sings out of tune for their courage to get up and do it, but, you know, if it's really in tune and in really in then it's like it's something which will uplift and it'll be a joy and pleasure and all that. But so it was like the feeling, okay, if we're just an instrument, that's the main thing, you know, just to be the instrument. And then, of course, whatever comes out from that is always going to be good in that sense. So it's like it's... so that was a real stamp of, wow, just to be an instrument. And that's probably was the space I always thought that, wow, this is what I always wanted to be, just an instrument. So you were like, I guess, a channel for Baba in that sense, because you're 100% focused in the present, also in silence. And I used to find that even when playing, if I had a thought about what I was playing, or had to start thinking, then it would stop. So I was thinking, wow, even, just, so it's almost like, it's like if you're doing something and you see someone in the audience, then all of a sudden you're sort of broken that sort of, of what you're playing. You get distracted by that. So yeah, it was really that thing of being an instrument. So, and then of course, whatever anyone said would also be neutral as well. You wouldn't be affected by the praise. If somebody praised you, oh, that was really good. Or if somebody said, oh, is that the same thing you've been playing for the last 10 years, And sometimes, and in the past that would really affect me, sort of like in the sense of, if somebody said a criticism or some comment that was, not constructive, then I'd just stop. Sometimes for months, and then you start again and then get back into it. So the instrument aspect, then you're sort of, the feeling is you're just an instrument, and okay, it can be like this or it can be like that, but you're not internally affected by that remark. So it's just the best you can do, and okay, it's not perfect, but then it doesn't matter. It's more, you're just in playing that part, and the part's no different to any other part in the sense of, if somebody's, it's not, okay, if you play music, you're up here or something, and if you're doing this, you're down here. It's like it's the same vision, the same attitude, the same, that whatever someone's doing. So then it's just a part, But to master that is like, I feel, is when we accept everyone's part as it is. And I think this was probably one of my biggest challenges here in over time is, when things are happening or you have some sanskara, because in Madhaban, we don't have outside world as such. We're not going to work somewhere else in the very Lokic places, and that we have just the Nawasis here. But what my feeling is up to now, that whatever we have to learn, of course, the best place to learn that is where we are, And this is sort of sometimes where I used to observe, sometimes you come across souls that are in a space where they're totally discontent with their situation, the people around them. They say, I've had enough of this, I've had enough of these people, I'm going. So they go somewhere else. And then within 6 months, a year, same stories emerged again with a different set of actors, different set of people, but a similar situation of what they have to learn, their drama. So it's obviously the souls, we're creating our own drama in that sense, but within Madhaban it's like it's sanskaras with everyone, and how you get on with everyone, how you cooperate with everyone, all the things Baba says, of course, but it's all in-house. So it's sometimes very, very subtle, but you have the best people to teach you what you have to learn in that environment, and that's been the same here for me. Sometimes, you can be okay as a foreigner being in Madhaban. Sometimes souls will have, a legacy left over from the British Raj. They don't want to be ruled over by a foreigner, or that type. It's very subtle, but it's like, and so you think, okay, and sometimes it's like also. Even within India, and when Baba says soul consciousness is our first and last lesson, it's so deep in that sense that even if somebody comes in front of someone here, and just by the dress I'll know where someone's from and what state, whatever of India, in that sense. So even if India would say, okay, there's so many states, but everyone will dress a little bit different in their cultural thing. And so how to see all that as in a soul conscious way as well, where we're not sort of You know, oh, they're from there, or they're from south, or they're from north, or they're from east, or they're from there. So it's you know, like in the sense of the soul aspect, of course, it's seeing through all those things as well. And of course, India had the caste system in the past as well. So that's another, that, you know, like there's many layers of things which, to be that soul conscious, that when we see someone, we're seeing them just in that sense of that soul and that character. I think this is one of the biggest challenges, you know. And that's obviously why Baba says this is our first and last lesson in that sense, because it's so, we take everything on a physical form to see the invisible, as even with Baba now. We don't see Baba with the physical eyes, but we experience that. So it's so those things are like, and of course I've you know, the challenges here in the past of like, you know, some of those challenges now I see those particular souls that were part of that journey with me, I see them now that they were absolutely my best teachers, you know, because the drama pushes the things towards us which we have to learn the most, you know. We can't escape that. There's no, even if you go to a desert island, someone's going to roll up, I'm sure. Or something will roll up, you know, that will push the button, you know, like. So we have to go through that. But I remember Didi once saying, she said, you know, I had this drama and, you know, one particular soul, and she said, well, he's here to stay, deal with it, you know. So it was just like, but, you know, he was expecting some magic solution from a senior, but they know also, because as we go further and further, we realise that, okay, these, when souls, or when we have the challenges with others and sanskaras, and we, especially if we go to a senior complaining, well, you know, that's like the finger pointing, you know, one finger's pointing this way, but the three are coming back to me, so they know it's your story as well, you know, that you have to use Gyan to find a solution with that, you know, and in a real sense, because if somebody's, like you see that if somebody's purposely being negative, for example, towards you, or purposely doing things which are really, you know, they're doing them purposely to push your button or to, you know, on a negative side. But then I remember, for my experience, was like, until I got to a point where I realized they're just playing their part, their actions are their karmic story, and my actions, my reaction back to them is my story. So if I'm upset that they're doing this, then that's my story, you know. They're just doing that. You know, so it was, I mean, it sounds really simple, but it's sort of almost like when that's realized, of course, it's like a penny that drops, because you realize, okay, they're just playing their part, it's their fortune. Why should I react to them in the same way, you know? Even if you think they're doing that to you, but that's, I guess that's that lesson when Baba says, okay, don't give sorrow, don't take sorrow. So you're not taking that in a sense, you just start to watch that as, okay, it's their fortune. If you need other help, get other help. Why should I expect someone should do something the way I want them to do it, or, you know, and a big part of that too, I think, is when we mentally we come into this thing of I and my as well, because that's a big, you know, when I find if I use the thing of I'm going to do this, or something, there's always going to be some drama with that, you know. So, and I remember sort of when I reflected on that, I remember Daddy Kumaka, when she was here, she would never say I, you know. She had that really strong, that, you know, she might say, oh, Daddy will do this, but she would never say I. So it was almost like a mental thing, that if I come into this thinking of I'm going to do, then there's going to be some challenge, you know, because the I has to disappear. Doing is okay, doing, but not in the sense I am doing of, oh, I've done this and I've got to do this, and, you know, that. Then it's almost like that aspect of our world too will become challenging as well, because then it's like there's some expectation or if it doesn't happen, then I get burdened by that as well. So I guess sort of it's like you have an endeavour to do, but doing in a way where it's a natural flow and not thinking that I have to do. For example, I had a recent event. I went back to Australia. There was a Lockett brother had left the body, and the part I had was executor of his will and property and all that. So, and I remember sort of when it come to the point of, you know, this place he had, this house, and it was, you know, a big job to clean up. And I remember when I accepted, do I accept to do this, or do I pay someone else to do this? And I remember sort of come back to think, well, things can be used in a good way for people of charity, and rather than just get it all, put it in all a big tip and get rid of everything like that. So, but I was very aware in that process that I didn't mentally come into this think that I have to do this. I was really aware of that I didn't want to have in the mind that I have to do this. I was doing, but I didn't think like that. And of course, it was fun in the end to do. It was like it was a big job, a lot of action, a lot of sort of things, but it was like not the burden in the sense of that I have to do this. So
you don't accept burdens. When we were talking the other day, you said how, I've forgotten exactly how you put it, but you've always felt that happiness is very important, and you know, you would do your best to step away from things that you saw didn't lead to happiness. And I think you're expressing that in many of the things you're saying this morning. You know, you're not going to...
Yeah, because there's always a feeling.
Recognising that this needs doing, but not sort of identifying with it in the sense that it then becomes a burden. It's a big thing and I've just got to do it. And then it feels heavy. That's interesting.
Yeah, because many times if we say, you know, it's like having a list or something, I have all these things to do today. Yeah, I mean, this would be the first, for me, it would be the first mistake, you know, thinking I have to do all these things, you know, these got to be done. And then, of course, you'll go through the process of doing them, but if you think I have to do them, then if, you know, someone comes into the picture or something comes into the thing and you know, I think, no, but, you know, 11 o'clock I have to do this, I'm meeting this and this is late, or... So there's already this tension or stress related to... And it's like here, you know, I mean, everyone knows here Indian time. Who doesn't know Indian time? No? You know, so, you know, if you have someone from, say, or we have someone formerly from Swiss, no, Swiss watch, you know, pretty accurate timings and that, but if it's a little bit what we think late, you know, then, you know, I remember times here, someone's coming along, you know, you get a phone call, well, we're coming up this morning at... now I hear that, but I don't hear it as well, you know. It's registered someone's coming, but I don't sort of wait, like, for them to come, because I think waiting, in a sense, as well. I mean, who does waiting here? Anyone still that does waiting? Sometimes? Or cubby? Yeah, so I think that's an interesting aspect, too, of when waiting, you know, waiting for what? You know, it's almost like waiting for something to happen or for someone to arrive. So in that process, when I sometimes think of that, of like waiting, and I say that sometimes, and I don't do waiting, but it's like if we're making the most of each moment, then where's the question of waiting, you know? That's what I sort of sometimes feel. You know, it's like, because if we're really in that process waiting, I mean, it's horrible. I mean, who likes waiting? Does anyone like waiting? Waiting in a line, waiting in a queue, waiting for someone to arrive when you have to be doing something else.
I can enjoy it as you know, a peace time.
Yeah, but would you call that?
When I would have just kept steaming on, busy, and something is making me take a break.
Yeah, well, interesting, because, I mean, I think it's like waiting in a what I feel anyway, from my experience of waiting, is like to fill in that space with doing something that you're engaged in something, so there's not a wait. It's like, I mean, there's many sayings for waiting. Waiting for the kettle to boil, you know. Sometimes the kettle takes forever to boil. If you're waiting for it, it's bad news, you know. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, but then if you put the kettle on and you're doing something else, then the kettle comes off and you haven't waited at all. You've made use of that time, and then of course that waiting aspect is not there. But if you're really waiting, then that's you know, a lot of things can happen in that space where you know, it's like a waste, or expecting as well, expectations, especially if it's involved with someone else in that. So it's an interesting mental part as well of when we say that, you know.
Yeah, you have a constant love of learning this art of putting spirituality into life. That's what's coming across to me. You know, you're a real learner. You know, you don't just think, oh, well, I don't like this. Oh, well, you know, nothing I can do about it. You know, you actually like,
well,
this is
it's interesting you say that, because the Indian government, I've been on a student visa for 20 years. They sort of think, well, a real learner, yeah, okay. How long's this course of student life going to be? So sometimes I've had that in a ministry, you know, where they say, okay, I get a new visa every 5 years, and I've got student visas. And of course, you know, Baba says this is the student life is the best life, and as we know in Raj Yoga, it's not just for 5 years, it's for the rest of our lives. So when I've related this back to the Indian ministry, you know, they scratch their heads a bit and think, you know, how long is your studies? Yeah, so quick learn, I don't know with that. But yeah, it's, I think I guess that sort of comes back again to the present time as well, and it's like, sometimes I feel, and many years ago actually, just an experience I had with when Baba was in Diamond Hall, and I think it was in the, Daddy Komaka was still here, so it must have been before 2005 or around that time, but Baba would conduct drill, yeah? And sometimes in Diamond Hall there'd be 20,000 people. And when Baba said, oh, you know, the translation would, okay, we'll go into pin drop silence. Well, Diamond Hall's never pin drop silent. I can assure you, at any one time there's 20, 30, 40 people coughing at once and a lot of background noise. But when Baba was, the seniors were talking to Baba's, and it was this dialogue of, okay, how long have we got left of Sangam Yuga? You know, so when the dialogue would go to Baba, you know, with the seniors, how long have we got left? And of course, Baba will never give a date. Yeah, he doesn't give a date for that. He'll come back to us and say, okay, are you ready? You know, are you ready for that? And of course, there'd be silence, you know. But when he conducted a drill after this dialogue with the seniors, you know, and of course, that time was in what was happening in the world was the big tsunami that happened in Japan, when the nuclear reactor and all this was damaged, and all this big drama with and so a lot of souls left the body in that particular time. And when Baba did this drill, I was sort of in this sort of space where I was sort of thinking, okay, Baba doesn't give a time for Vinash, but I mean, for these souls that were in Japan, that was their last moments, you know, a lot of those souls, that was like their Vinash, you know, in that sense.
And this is the moment.
शिव पिता को अब याद करो, मुक्ति धाम तुम्हें जाना है। अपने सुकर्मों के बल पर ही सतयुग में तुमको आना है। शिव पिता को अब याद कलयुग का अंत अब आया है, विकराल विनाश खड़ा आगे।
अब हम सबका शिव पिता ने बतलाया है।
शिव पिता को अब याद करो। पांडव शिव शक्ति सेना की रणभेरी अब फिर बजती है।
शिव बाबा के ज्ञान से फिर माया को मार भगाना है।
शिव पिता को अब याद करो, सतयुग में तुमको आना है। शिव पिता को अब याद करो, मुक्ति धाम तुम्हें जाना है। अपने सुकर्मों के बल पर ही सतयुग में अब तुम्हें आना है।
धाम में तुम्हें
सतयुग में अब तुम्हें आना है।
धाम में तुम्हें गाना है।
Shall we see if there are any questions from others?
Yeah.
Anyone, anyone, any questions you'd like to ask David? Please do. There's a microphone here. Is there any particular gem that you've omitted to say that you're just burning to share?
I just to finish just before the traffic control, but that experience when Baba did that drill was like, I had the experience, it was, when he did the drill, it was such an experience of being in the present moment that I felt, wow, this present moment is eternal, and it always stays eternal. And I felt that, okay, also in the present moment, the soul will leave the body. It won't leave the body in the future. You know what I mean? So it's almost like this, if this present moment is eternal forever, and every moment is measured for eternity, then of course, even our last breath will be in this present moment. Now, you might say, okay, nothing happened now, so that was a present moment. But, you know, in that sense, it goes on that present moment. So the experience was like, okay, how to be as much as possible present, because that's almost like that's home base. That's our, and that space is this space of silence, which is soul world, yeah? When we're in that space of soul world, we're just suspended animation, we're just this seed. And it's, if we experience that state now in this present moment, then that's home base. So it was like the feeling, wow, of course, Baba, how would Baba give a date for the present moment when Vinash would take place? Because it will be in the present moment. It won't be in the future. So, you know what I mean? It's like, it was like a real insight into that, okay, of course it can't be. I mean, you know, sometimes Baba says, you know, your last breath, or, you know, if your last thoughts will lead you to your destination, and we don't know about tomorrow, we don't know the next second actually, you know. So in a true sense, we might say, okay, no, it's going to be, we're going to be sitting in this hall, okay, you know, a few seconds we're all here, but then somebody just might leave. Someone just may leave the body, so that was their last second. So in that sense, it was real, wow, of course Baba can't give a date for that. Otherwise he'd say it's going to happen, you know, tomorrow at 4 o'clock, and we'll be all waiting for 4 o'clock tomorrow, and nothing happened, you know. You know, it can't give a date for that. So, and that's what's happened in the past too, you know, where there's been some posters with a date on it, you know, 1976 Vinash or something, but it's like there was that feeling, of course, if we're being aware and being in this moment now, then we can't be deceived in that sense. So it's like there was a feeling of home base. But then the reality of being in that present moment means all our past karmic things have to be cleared. We can't have any desires of something else in the future, because that's going to pull our mind away from this present moment. So there's many things that make up that, but it was just that insight into, wow, of course that's obviously the karma-teed stage, as a detached observer.
Well, thank you, David. So, is there anyone who would like to ask a question or two? There's a microphone.
Do you still have the Translite that you made? The Translite book and with the candle.
Oh, well, it wasn't really, it was just a candle, a book, and a drawing pin, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just like sometimes I feel, I mean, obviously, you know, the thing is, it's like, I think initially we need something, we need music, we like to hear music, good songs, some music that's going to take us beyond, or a nice picture or a nice painting, but of course we know at the end of the day we have to transcribe that into our own, to make our connection with Baba to that, you know, soul conscious state, and to remembrance of Baba without anything actually. If we relied on any of these things, then, you know, then that's not the endeavour either, you know. So we have to somehow transcribe that over to how can I be in remembrance, or concentrated in a state where that can be while I'm doing anything actually, not just Baba's room or my favourite Translite. So they're all things, good things we use, but at the end of the day, I have to make that more than that, you know. And it's interesting because, I mean, being in art department, we have hundreds of pictures, you know, hundreds of pictures of Bapdada, Shiv Baba, and you wouldn't believe how many times somebody comes in and they still want another type. They want another point of light, they want a different one, a different colour, more rays, less rays, just a point, a seed, a star, and it goes on, you know. As many souls as there are, that they'll see Shiv Baba differently or have a different feeling like this or like this or like this, which is fine, but it's interesting in that sense of, you know, we all see Baba differently. What our choices are for a translite or for meditation might be good for you, but someone else, they go, oh, I don't like that, you know, or wow, that's fantastic, that one. So it's different, yeah.
I think there's a brother, yes.
Yeah,
Please
I
ask
have
your
a question. So like when you say like, when you're doing something and you put 100% your focus in that, so can you describe it like, so what's the difference between like put 100% in focus to doing something and be so concerned in that moment? I mean, the logic, they can put 100% your focus to doing a job, but we don't call that as a soul conscious, right? So can you describe between like when you're doing that and with the other?
Well, I think, I mean, it's like, it's 100% in the sense of when, and soul conscious, but it's like if I'm in a state of concentration and silence, yeah? I mean, it's like, okay, when we say soul conscious, what does that really mean, soul consciousness, no? There's many aspects to soul consciousness. So even Lokic souls, I mean, they can still, in a sense, have the experience of being soul conscious, but they may not know it's soul conscious. You know, it's like a child, no? A child do something is more soul conscious because they're not thinking, they're just doing, isn't it? It's like in that sense of, okay, golden age, we're soul conscious naturally. We're not thinking, I am a soul, I'm a point of light. With a knowledge aspect, they're just naturally soul conscious. So I think in that sense it's like there's of course we have knowledge, so we know, okay, different aspects of soul consciousness know. Okay, we can have a thought, okay, I'm a point of light, but there's more than the soul just being a point of light. It has a whole part. It's eternal. This is one of many, many parts, and everyone else as well. So it's at the. I mean, we have that. We have the knowledge of that, you know. So that's a different aspect of. It's like when it's like if you're doing something and everyone I think's had the experience when you get lost doing that action, and all of a sudden you look at the time and a lot of time's gone past, but it just seems like 5 minutes ago. Might be hours. It's like if we have good meditation as well. If we sit in good concentration, 45 minutes can go past in a flash. Yeah? You've had that? We've had that, where you sit in meditation, all of a sudden think, wow, just that, you were so lost in that with Baba and Gyan within that, but concentrated that the time somehow disappeared. And the same as if we're not concentrated, 45 minutes can be like torture. Like, is this going to finish? When's this Amrit Vela finish? Or whatever, It's like, that's the difference is like that, in that sense.
So yesterday I was having a conversation with somebody, so he asked me a question, and I'm going to ask you that question. He says, I keep going to Baba and saying the same thing over and over again. He repeats his story or his, I don't know what grievances, but I said I can relate to that. But any of your thoughts on this particular subject, that when you go to Baba and you keep on, telling him the same thing as if he's deaf?
Yeah, I haven't really had that experience like that, but yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we talk in our mind to that. I mean, I guess it's like when Baba's becoming more naturally your companion, where you're doing things with Baba in mind, and it becomes like a normal, normal process. I guess from my experience a lot now, I don't so much dialogue like that, but it's more, okay, to sit in silence and just enjoying that space of soul world and like home base in that sense. So, but then when thoughts do come, it's almost like out of that space of silence, you're getting direction or what the next step is in that sense, and naturally from Baba in that sense. It's like Baba knows what we need anyway, it's like without even saying. So, asking is like, I mean, we can dialogue, we talk to Baba, of course, but it's like how to make that, I guess it's like if we all go through that process, I suppose, where we have our, we sit in meditation, talk to Baba, talk about your day, what you did, things you did do or didn't do. I mean, you can have that dialogue, but then there gets to a point where we're able to just sit and just experience silence, and that's enough as well. But it might take a lot of talking the same things, I don't know. For some souls it might be like that. I don't think I answered that, but anyway, I suppose.
So thank you for that wonderful, profound conversation. I'm sure everyone took something from his conversation, and I'm sure it'll aid to your journey, it'll help to your journey. It was very wonderful. Thank you so much. And Sister Helena, thank you so much for taking the best out of him.
Thank you. Thank you. Om Shanti. So do we finish with a minute? Yeah.
What is this path you call me to? I never thought I'd be changing my life's frequency. Heart open share